Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 700, part 1. We review the Flash movie.
From the sleepy suburbs of Cleveland, Ohio, there are assembled the world's two greatest podcast hosts, created from the cosmic legends of the universe. Sean Whalen.
Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast. I'm a big fan of variant colors. My love for Batman is that stuff. Let's talk some comics.
And Jim Segulin.
How's it going, eh? You know me and Superman. I'm really loving what they're doing. Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast.
Their mission, to discuss DC Comics in books, movies, and television several times a month in 1 to 3 hour episodes. And to serve all mankind.
Outstanding!
Welcome to Raging Bullets. I am Sean Whalen, drnorge, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim, the sensei of the whatnot, the Duke of the Sultan of Strategery, the bridge defying, is wondering if someone messed with time, and he's actually a new version of himself, but he remains the elder statesman of the podcast, Segulin.
How's it going, eh?
Jim, on this episode, we're going to be talking in depth about the Flash movie. This is very spoiler-filled. This is the first of a 2-part anniversary. Our next episode, we're going to be doing a Batman 66 movie watch-along. I do want to shout out that opening sequence we got from our very good friend of the show who has done these song parodies for us for so many years now, Eli Ganias. And Eli, if I hope I got your name right. Eli, if you don't know, he is on that amazing podcast, Life with Althaar. They're currently on hiatus, but they've got 37, I believe, episodes that are out there. Yes, 37 episodes that are out there at this point in time. I'm a huge fan. I know you're a fan, Jim. We've done an interview before on our podcast. That was episode 612 with the amazing people putting together this. Eli was also on that interview. I love that podcast. Links are in the show notes. Please make sure to check it out if you have not subscribed to it. But thank you, Eli, for that absolutely amazing song parody. We are sponsored, as always, by DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. Mr. Segulin, what is going on over at DCBService.com?
We have Wonder Woman Blood and Guts, the deluxe edition hardcover, 50% off, only $24.99. Wonder Woman, the Golden Age Omnibus Volume 5, 50% off, only $75. And Wonder Woman, the Silver Age Omnibus Hardcover Volume 2, which, yes, you guessed it, 50% off, only $50. Thank you, DCDS.
I'm so giddy that they're continuing those Golden Age and Silver Age omnibuses. It's just such a great way to get that content, and I like having them in paper. But I like the big collection of stories, and I'm a big fan of omnibuses. I'm all in on both of those. Over at InStockTrades.com, they have their deals of the week. Sean Murphy's Batman Beyond the White Knight is available for $29.99, regularly 50% off. Only $14.99 for this amazing hardcover. And Superman Camelot Falls, the deluxe edition hardcover, $39.99, regularly 50% off, only $19.99. Be sure to check out DCB Service and InStockTrades.com for all of your comic book shopping needs. Mr. Segulin, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plot lines, story twists, and whatnot of the Flash movie. So if you haven't watched the movie, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Let's talk this movie.
A scarlet costume ejects from his ring, and in a blur of motion, police scientist Barry Allen becomes the Flash.
So, Jim, it is here. The Flash movie is upon us. And it's funny, we had originally had the plan of doing Batman, and we're going to still do it, the Batman 66 watch-along for this episode. But timing-wise, and we could not have planned this for our 700th episode, the Flash movie has arrived. And this is very fitting for this particular episode, just in the sense it's a film, I should say, of change. This is the ending of the DC film universe as we had known it, and the beginning of the new direction. And this film kind of embraces both, being a setup piece for that. It also, one of the things, I'm a huge time-traveling fan, and Doctor Who being my absolute favorite TV show of all time. And I've always loved that in comics, how they play around with time. The concept of why wouldn't you just go back and change things? And this really embraces the concept of consequence and how this thing that you may desire, that you may think is the most benevolent thing you could possibly do, can have devastating effects. And I really liked that, while not getting bogged down in being this super dark movie. So, initial impression of this movie, I just found it to be, like, it was thought-provoking, it had a great story, it embraced everything that I love about DC, and it was fun. And that fun factor was really, really important. I really enjoyed the film. I went and saw it the first time with you, saw it the second time with my wife. I guess I was overly afraid that this film was a little more inaccessible to like a casual fan, or like my wife, who doesn't have a big background with the Flash, other than she's watched some episodes of the TV series with me, but really loved it. Thought it was a lot of fun for her. So I'm going to be watching the numbers, the box office numbers, fingers crossed. I hope this winds up being a DC movie that does really well. Because just to bring that notice to DC, to bring that notice to these future movies that are coming, like Blue Beetle's coming, Aquaman's coming, those films having kind of that momentum behind them, I think is something that's really, really important right now. But I loved it out of the starting gate. Where were you on this one? You've seen it twice now. I don't know what your impression on the second one was. I know what it was like, obviously, the first time because I was with you.
Flash! Ah!
Different Flash.
Different Flash, but it still fits.
Yeah.
Seriously, I absolutely love this movie. This was one of those movies that, one, I watched it just so I could talk a little bit better about it, for the show, but two, I wanted to watch it again.
Yeah.
And they did it right. It's a Flashpoint story. So those of us who know Flashpoint, we know what's gonna happen. Every time Barry goes back in time to save his mom, what happens? Disaster. Comic book fans know this. But here's the thing. Even though going into it, knowing things were going to be goofy, knowing, some of the stuff that we were going to see, it still never took anything away from it because of the strength of the story.
Yeah.
Because of what they were telling. Because, and all of the characters got a chance to flex some acting muscle. Michael Keaton as Batman this time, he really got to show that, yes, I'm an actual actor. I actually have skills here. And he got to flex those and really show those as Bruce and as Bat. Ezra Miller did a great job. When he was Flash, when he was Barry, with and without powers, and just all the variations of Barry Allen that we got to see, he did a brilliant job with it. And like introducing characters who were just around just for this movie. Guess what? They did a great job, and it got me to the point where I'm like, I want to see more movies with them in there. And I'm talking Supergirl. I want to see more movies with her in there. They did a brilliant job on the storytelling. That they gave us plenty. There was constantly going from action scene to action scene to action scene, but in between there, they did some great character building. They did some great, just emotional tug at the heartstrings so many times throughout this movie. You and I, we're both sensitive on a lot of subjects when it comes to deceased parents, and this really did a brilliant job with just that emotional, raw emotional feeling that you get.
Yeah, and I think that's a piece that. The emotion was something that was really struck. My wife broke down during a certain scene towards the latter part of the film. We'll get to it, and we'll talk about that piece. But I was choked up the first time around. I was choked up the second time around. And really what it is, it's the relationship between the mom and Barry. Yeah. That was really critical to establish in this film, because what you want to do is, obviously, for anybody, the loss of a parent is something that is, can be devastating, and can be a hard piece to recover from. And recover is not even the right word, just to move on and try to, keep living life and all that kind of thing, because this is somebody that's really important to you. In the case of Barry, it was really showing what that relationship was like, and to be given that gift back and then have it taken away, or having to make the choice. That's the harder part. It isn't like to be given something and have it taken away, and then you've got to, suffer that loss again. You have to make the choice to give that up. Yeah. That's huge. It's really, really huge. And it wasn't just making that choice for his mom. It was making that, it screws with Dad's life. The choice has a significant impact on a very personal, close level. And that was something, the grocery scene, I might as well just jump to it. The grocery scene between Barry and his mom, where he's going back and making that choice. he has that emotional moment with her. It's like she know, and it's a mom thing, right? It's like she knows there's something there. She doesn't quite know that it's her son, but yet you can tell there's some familiarity. The actress playing his mom was phenomenal because you had to believe this is somebody who's a caring person. You had to feel a chemistry between her and Barry. If you don't feel that, both the young Barry, the boy who played the young Barry was great, also Ezra Miller. And that was seamless. It really felt like I get the relationship between him and his mom. There's something really close there between them. And it's different than the relationship with Dad, which they have a great relationship too, but it's a different sort of relationship. And that was something the film established without taking up too much screen real estate. That's hard to do. Because we don't have in TV shows you get used to multiple episodes where you get to see interactions between these characters and you understand their relationships. This is a 2.5-hour movie, yes, but there wasn't a ton of screen time where we got to see young Barry and got to see his childhood with her. It's really, this film is very judicious because it moved. And that was something that was really strong about this movie. It moved. There wasn't a lot of dead space. When you're doing a 2.5-hour film, in order to keep the audience engaged, you have to keep the film moving. No pun intended, this film sped along. I was in awe of the fact when I looked afterwards and I'm like, this was over 2.5 hours for this film. My wife felt the same way yesterday after we saw it again. She was like, it's over already? And that's something with a 2.5-hour film to say it's over already. And that was her reaction afterwards. Oh, yeah. And that's something that was a success of this film.
Oh, yeah. And I'll tell you, the grocery scene, the second time that Barry's there, that final farewell to his mom, that one, that tore me up. That got to me. That's the scene that just ripped at the heart. And again, as you said, they established this great relationship, between them. They established what exactly he's giving up, and they made it real, and it's that difficult choice that, it's that choice that none of us would ever want to make, but he had to do it, and it was the right thing to do. And they build up the blocks where it's basically his mom was, without knowing it, she's telling him it's okay to do this.
Yeah.
Then his interaction with Batman, it's okay to do this. Sometimes you got to do this. Sometimes there's not an answer, and just that building on it. And that moment when she's sitting there, again, you said something that just completely rings true to me as well. She was playing it like a true mom would.
Yep.
The actress did a brilliant job with that. It's like, I know I'm a stranger, but do you need a hug? And that's something that, any of the wonderful moms out there would do. They would see this kid who's obviously tore up over something. Hey, can I help you? Let me help you. And it just, whether she had any idea maybe of something weird, or if it was just her being this wonderful person, being this mom at this moment. So you get some people who go into mom mode. And they just, they immediately kick it in and just, do what needs to do. There's grandma modes as well for a lot of the grandmas out there. They have it's that instinct that kicks in, and she 100% played it up. It was a brilliant job on her part. But also, I love the interaction between these two. As I said earlier, the actors were given a chance to actually flex some acting muscle and actually show, hey, I can actually act here. And then the young Barry as well. Those two, young and older Barry, and then even Barry, Ezra playing himself as 18 version, and old Barry. The way the different Barry Allens all interacted, all had similar, physical traits, had similar stuff that, they did. It was absolutely brilliant. And I loved how they played off of each other. And again, granted, two of them are the same actor, but that in itself is difficult to pull off, playing yourself at a different age, acting a little bit different, but still, some of the Barry Allen that we saw in Justice League, we saw in the 18-year-old version, but the older Barry, he'd grown past that. So you kind of can get to see where the 18-year-old would turn into maybe, and also depending on how life had changed, because 18-year-old Barry didn't have the tragedy that old Barry had. So his life was a little bit different. His life was more carefree. He was more, dude. I loved how they played that off.
He was more the Justice League Barry. Now, and I'm not just talking about the Zack Snyder version. One of the things I've referenced before on the show is I liked the Justice League a lot as a movie. There was there's elements of it I loved. I liked the Snyder cut a little better in their handling of the Flash, because the Flash is a really important character to me. If you were to ask me like what is my definitive version of the Barry Allen for media, it is the Grant Gustin. Grant Gustin, I just think, is amazing as Barry Allen. He set the bar very, very high for the character. What I will say with this film, and this is a huge compliment to Ezra Miller, I felt like this film made me understand this Barry a lot more, and this Barry's ability to mature and grow into a Barry Allen that is more of my expectation for Barry Allen. And I felt like this film moved the needle forward big time. Because I think the problem is there's times where I feel like his version of Barry Allen comes off as incompetent at times, or often like dismissed or in the background or cartoony. I love humor with the Flash. I always have. But I feel like Barry Allen's got to be one of those guys you come into, and police scientist, he comes to you and he's competent, and I felt like this film really evolved him from what I didn't like about him in the Justice League movie. And I'm talking about the first version of the Justice League film, the Whedon cut. I felt like he was too silly in that. The balance was off. Like, I like humor. The Flash can be a funny character and bring that levity and fun factor to a story. We see that in the comics. That's great. But, this is Barry Allen. And Barry Allen is very different than Wally West. Barry Allen's very different than Bart. I felt like Ezra's portrayal was a lot more Bart at times than it was Barry. And I'm not knocking that. I like the Flash, and I really love this. I've liked his portrayal a lot. I liked the Snyder cut way better with him. This film was a completely different ballgame. And I think it was the contrast of seeing him with the younger, carefree version, where I got to see how much this version has matured. And you could start to see, okay, we're dealing with a young Barry Allen. And they're really trying to establish, this guy as a character. I really liked his interactions with Iris. And it was Kiersey Clemons who played Iris West. And those interactions were great, because this wasn't a film about Barry and Iris. But yet, if you're trying to establish some roots that this guy has, for his whole life, been pursuing his dad's, innocence, and it's well known, and this is somebody who grew up with him, who became a reporter, and she would be close to this, and she's skirting that line of, hey, I'm trying to report on this story, yes, but I also am compassionate to this person who I know from growing up. There's a connection there, and he's got a crush on her, like a major crush on her, which I thought he played off really well. It became endearing pretty quickly. And that was something like I wanted after this film. I wanted to see more of that relationship. I want the date. I want, them to start going somewhere as a couple. And that's a victory where I'm starting to buy into this Barry. I'm starting to buy into his relationships. I'm starting to, and that is, a lot of that was due to not only his portrayal as the adult, the older Barry, because he's still growing. He's not quite like the seasoned adult that we would get from like Ben Affleck's character, for example, who's in the later part of his career. I really thought he did a great job in this of playing off of the younger self in a way where I started believing in Barry Allen. With having that preference of Grant Gustin, that's hard to do, because admittedly, I'm going to say it. If you ask me which Barry Allen do you prefer, hands down, I prefer Grant Gustin. I think Grant Gustin just, to me, has established himself as Barry Allen. It's what I expect. It's like somebody else trying to play Oliver Queen now after Stephen Amell. I really liked his portrayal of Oliver Queen. I want them to make another Green Arrow. Don't get me wrong. I want there to be a Green Arrow in the film universe. If they're not going to use him and they're going to use another actor, that actor's going to have to compete with the fact that Stephen Amell has laid that out for me. Ezra Miller's competing with that. And I think he did a bang-up job in this movie of doing it.
one of the things I've been thinking about with Barry Allen and the portrayals of Barry, because I agree with you, Grant Gustin's amazing as the Flash, but also he has the advantage of how many hours have we seen him as the Flash?
True.
How many situations and experiences have we seen him dealing with stuff as Barry, dealing with stuff as the Flash, dealing with him and Iris's relationship? So he's got this advantage. Now, looking at Ezra Miller, when we first got the initial exposure of him, in the Whedon cut, he was more of a minor player. When Snyder Cut came around, they gave him a lot more action, a lot more interaction, a lot more of stuff where you can see Barry and the Flash. So that, again, you're like, yeah, that's why I like that version better, because there's more screen time. There's more flexibility, more usage.
It's also, though, not just the silly. I want to be very, very careful with that, because it doesn't matter how much screen time you've got, and I'm not knocking you, please. What I'm saying, though, is what worked in the Snyder Cut was the choice of scenes that were in there. There was the opportunity for Barry to be more than the slapstick. He wasn't Plastic Man in the Snyder Cut. And I felt like in the Whedon cut, he was a lot more Plastic Man. If you get where I'm going with that.
No, I completely get you, and I agree with you. And that's one of the things about this movie that I loved. They kept some of the whimsical stuff, but they let him be, an actor. Let him actually do his stuff. Like, I talk about how just his interaction with young Barry was wonderful, but that one scene in the cave when he snaps at him, and he just cuts into, you have no idea what has gone through. You had everything handed to you, and just that anger, because that Barry lost his mom. Young Barry never lost his mom. That stuffed monkey that is so precious to older Barry is because that's the last thing Mom ever gave him. To young Barry, that's just one of many things that young Barry got. His bathrobe, young Barry's bathrobe was a monkey, which I noticed that, during the second watch. I was like, that's a monkey. I kept noticing all the different little monkey stuff throughout young Barry's place, going, okay, yeah. So that thing that's so sacred to older Barry is because that was the last thing that Mom ever gave him. Whereas others, and I love just that, how they kept doing those little moments where you got to see why old Barry, is a little bit more serious. And you look at him at the beginning of the movie when he's doing this, when he's helping out the back, saving the hospital. He's like, there was a little bit of humor going on there where he's like, I need to get food. I need to go. I am late for work. All the classic Barry Allen being late stuff. But then, he kicks it into hero mode and he's doing his Flash thing. So they really gave, this movie, we got a chance to see a more mature version of what we had in the past, which you should, because it's been a couple years since the Justice League happened. In this movie universe, the Flash has been around for a little while now. People knew him. He had his fans going, "Oh my God, the Flash, we love you," kind of stuff. So you got to see that growth, and I love the fact that we got that in. So I 100% see this same guy as being the guy who was in the Justice League movies. Yeah. And I agree with you. The Snyder Cut really did give him more room to more flexibility to actually show the complexities of the Flash. Whereas, the Whedon version was a very simple cut of the Flash. It was very straightforward. This is who it is. Whereas, again, Snyder Cut got a little bit grittier, got a little bit dirtier, but it got a little bit deeper on all the characters. And also, so it's one of those things where I'm like, yeah, I completely agree with you. I like that version better because of what you said, but I also like this version better than that version.
I know.
This version,
yes,
of that as well. So I'm loving this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh boy, are you saying that's exactly right? Hands down, this version is blows both of those out of the water. I could not agree with you more off of this. I really like Barry Allen in this, and I do want to be clear on that. The other piece, I want to shout out Ian Lowe. He's the actor who played Little Barry. I thought the sequence with him, it's not a super long sequence. It actually was the right length. as far as just establishing him as a child in his relationship with mom. Because sometimes that's forgotten when, they go through these tragedies. You never have those sequences where, like, well, did they even care about each other? You know what I mean? You got to give me some buy-in that this is a family before, like, you sit there and go, well, he's going to be crushed for life over this. And they did a great job of doing that with him. And he is playing the sweet kid and having the dance, with his mom, and the interchange of, that line that was going on between them. I love you more. No, I loved you first. That type of thing that they were doing. I thought that was really, really great to establish that from the young one. And, the love for the toy and all that kind of stuff that they did that kind of extended through his life. I connected with that, like, deeply. And it was something that I thought was really, really important.
And speaking of relationships, again, great relationship between Barry and his dad.
Oh, yeah.
And it's something they established in the first movie where, Barry's just never ending to free his dad. And what does his dad want him to do? To live his life. And we saw that in the Justice League movie, and both versions of the Justice League movie did a good job of having the dad saying, hey, let this go. Come on, man, live your life. And even like you remember back at the end of the Justice League movie when he first holds up the sign that, first holds up the job thing that he got the job. He's like, well, good for you. You can see the dad like, yeah, you're living. Same thing with this one. And again, Ron Livingston playing the dad did a great job. And Maribel Verdú, Verdu, played the mom. Throw out her name just because, again, brilliant work on these two, making me believe they're a loving couple, making me believe there's a loving family there. I love that interaction, as you said, just young Barry with his dad, and he's throwing the he can drive. Here's some, throw some flour in his hair, and he's old, and just that general dad, funny dad vibe.
Run, Barry, run. She's gonna sing. I mean, little things. Ron Livingston, great job as the dad, kind of playing those, because we're establishing what feels like a thriving, three-dimensional family.
Yes. Absolutely love that. And again, brilliant job interacting older and younger. I can't speak enough about how much I loved the family unit. Yeah. And you need to have that in this movie, especially later on when you're tugging at the heartstrings over Barry, saying, my mom's got to die. Saying that and letting it happen and actually making it actually happen again. That to me is just something huge that it built on emotion that was established early.
And that's a pivotal emotion to establish in this film, because as we start talking a little bit more about the story beats of the film, I think if you don't have this core, none of that matters as much. You've got to realize why this guy cares and really feel that in a strong way. So the film, I want to talk a little bit about the opening if I could, because the opening was really cool.
Yes.
And there's so much that happens in the opening. And talking about screen time, stuff that I thought was just going to be a very quick cameo was actually had a lot more depth to it. And I really thought that it was really great. When you're looking at this film as like a closure of one chapter and the beginning of a new one, I think that because originally that wouldn't have been the intention of this film. This was meant to be kicking off the Flash film that was going to be part of a larger tapestry of these films that were continuing on. There's going to be a third Wonder Woman. There was supposed to be a solo Ben Affleck movie at certain points in time. More you would assume. There's a second Aquaman, but this was all supposed to be interconnected, and potentially more Henry Cavill. So that was the original intention. This was not meant to be the ending. It was meant to be the continuation. So I thought they did a real good job in that terrorist sequence in the beginning. They had Alfred, which I thought was great, that he had Alfred on speed dial, and, he's trying to get his food, and he wasn't the first choice. He wasn't even the second choice. And I like if you asked the question, he goes, so, how many people did you go through before I was your first choice? And I thought it was such a great sequence. I love that this is something that really is very comic booky. The idea that Barry's always late. I do like the fact that that's something that they put into the film. And he's like, my usual person isn't here who needs to be here because I'm already late like I always am. And she's usually got my stuff grab and go. I can grab it and get out of here. Now I'm trying to explain my meal to you. And we've all been here before with the person behind the counter who is telling you their story that you do not care about. And this guy's going off on it, and I felt that felt so real world. And in the midst of this, Barry's getting a call from Alfred about going and helping with this thing. And he's like, this great. So I'm going in to do Gotham cleanup, for Bruce Wayne, which is how he views himself. He's the Justice League janitor, which I thought was such a great line in there. But he was so important to that sequence. I loved Ben Affleck's costume in this, and I want to go right to it. I thought they did a really good job of giving some screen time in this to Ben Affleck's Batman, who I'm assuming we're probably not going to see again. Or if we do, we're going to see him in a film where it's kind of like this one, where you get kind of an homage to other actors who played him, because I think this was supposed to be his last time, and I think he views it that way too. Regardless, who knows, storytelling-wise, there could be something down the road that would, bring him back. But this costume is by far my favorite Ben Affleck Batman costume. Very Dark Knight Returns, while giving it kind of like the tech that you would kind of use for Batman to show Batman's getting a little older. He needs a little more armor. It was cool armor. I loved the bike, which was a nice little throwback to his Batman, but also the Christian Bale Batman. There was some elements of it that linked back to that kind of tech. I really loved the action scenes with him, where he's getting dragged by that vehicle and trying to surf. I just thought the action sequence was a great one. And the costume looked really good in it. Where we got to see just Batman, the Batman that's not going to quit. The Batman that's not going to stop. And I didn't expect him to have as much screen time as he did. And I found that to be, maybe you did, I don't know if you were in the same boat, but I thought that they really did a great job with him, both in and out of the costume and his interactions with the Flash, interactions with the villains, ultimately the interaction with Wonder Woman, which I did not expect either. I thought that whole opening sequence was really great. I'm going to talk about the Flash bits in a couple of seconds, because I think there's a whole Flash sequence to talk about there. But I really want to focus right now on just Batman, Wonder Woman, and that sequence. That was not what I expected, and really was well done. I really enjoyed it.
Oh, God, yeah, dude, I'll tell you. And it's funny, as you were going, I'm nodding my head along, because one of my things about this movie that I absolutely loved was how much screen time they gave all the other characters. This wasn't just about the Flash. He's the main focus on it. He's the focal entity, but they gave so much screen time, so much availability to all the other characters that it really did flesh it out. It really did feel kind of like almost a Justice League movie, because they gave so much energy towards Ben Affleck, towards Michael Keaton's Batman, towards Wonder Woman. Even though she had that little cameo, it was still enough. And Supergirl, they 100% gave her a bunch of time, to really flesh out who she is. So this movie, I loved how much they did give, Ben Affleck's Batman. They let him go out. Again, this is a movie where Michael Keaton got to show really what he could do as Batman. This is a movie where we got to see what Ben Affleck could really do as Batman. Because the Batman moments of the physical side of it, and then him out of the costume when he's talking to Barry as, Bruce Wayne, those are some great moments for him. And that opening fight sequence, again, I love the usage of the bike, because it does fit coming out of the plane, coming out of the Batjet or whatever he's calling it, the carrier. It fit. And then just, again, the neat little tech gadgets, everything that he was throwing at the thing, the shootout where he shot out the stop sticks. I was like, oh, that is awesome. I'm like, right now there's police somewhere going, man, I wish we had something like that, because getting stop sticks in front of a car is one of the hardest jobs when throwing out the sticks. Right there, shoot them out. They spread out right in front of the car. That was perfect. And again, the extra armor, because this is an older Batman.
Yep.
We saw in Justice League him saying, I don't got much more time doing this, because of, he is a little bit older, and he's a human. He's not a goddess. He's not from Krypton. He is just a regular everyday guy who gets beat up pretty bad. So those sequences were absolutely wonderful. I loved them. And of course, anytime Gal Gadot shows up, I always cheer. I popped both times. The second time I saw the movie, when she made her appearance, the audience cheered again. Every time she's on the screen, the audience pops, especially because when you hear the music, da-da-da-da-da, that Wonder Woman theme kick in, the audience pops for it. I'm like, she's wonderful as Wonder Woman.
There may be a legit reason why they don't want to do that third movie. I don't know what the script looked like or anything like that. I just know I really enjoyed the first two. I don't know how you judge the second one when it came out during the pandemic. Like, what are you basing your success off of? That was the worst possible timing to release a film. It was Wonder Woman 84. But you're idiots if you don't recognize that she should be in another movie. There needs to be another Wonder Woman movie. And that's a recasting that does not need to happen. Listen, at the end of the day, if they're really committed, with doing this new universe, but it looks like they're willing to do Aquaman and continue him on, which Jason Momoa is Aquaman, great. I mean, at least that was the impression I got from the end scene, was that there's a strong possibility we're going to continue on. I know we're getting another Aquaman movie, but I mean, in this new DC universe, there's a possibility we're going to keep Jason Momoa as Aquaman. I'm way cool with that. I'm not against recasting with any of the characters. If they recast Wonder Woman because, hey, we're recasting Superman, we're heading in a new direction, we're going to recast Wonder Woman, I get it. I don't know. She's really good.
Yes.
So with the timey-wimey universe stuff that you do, you don't have to recast everybody. And if she's still interested in doing more films and you've got a great script out there, you're out of your minds if you don't consider her, because I think she's phenomenal. I think she added something to this film. That's an example. That was more of the cameo I was expecting from Batman, is kind of from Ben Affleck, is what we got from her. And hers was great because I wasn't expecting it. And it was so cool to have that in there. It just gave that right kind of feel of, they are part of this Justice League team. The Carrier added that too, that Bruce came off of. I'm glad you mentioned it when he came off with the bike, because that was what they used in Justice League. And it was cool to see that Carrier happen again, be a part of this film. Just kind of giving you the sense of, this is that team. This is the team that had that adventure together. So I was glad that they gave so much depth to that.
Yeah, it's great depth scene. Again, it was wonderful physical action. And you need to have a good opening physical scene. You need to have that good open pop. And then you have that, again, the magic lasso bit. Mm-hmm. I always laugh every time they put those in. It makes me laugh. And even the second time watching it, I still chuckled where he's like, I developed this persona to deal with my childhood trauma. And he's looking down and he sees the lasso. He's like, dang it, gotta get this thing off, gotta get it off. And then Barry tries helping, and he has a disaster with the lasso as well. Again, funny moment, but didn't take away from anything going on, didn't take away from anything that we had just seen. And as a matter of fact, it added to the moments. And again, even Ben Affleck afterwards, when he's talking to Alfred, over his shoulder, does the Batarang throw over his shoulder, knocking out the bad guy.
Yep.
Again, funny moments, completely continued within the universe, made sense, fit nicely, didn't distract from anything. That's what I loved about this movie. You could have those whimsical moments that didn't take away. There was some borderline slapstick funny moments, but it never took away from the movie. It added to it. And I love that.
His cowl was awesome. I really liked that cowl. I think over the years, there's been a lot of variations of the Batman cowl for television, screen, and things like that. Some have been successful. Some have been not as strong. That was one where it really did like the comic book thing, where it had some personality to it. But it felt very Dark Knight Returns. I mean, which was obviously a deliberate choice. And I really liked it with the fact that they were clearly modeling so much of his Batman off of that I thought it was great that in like what may be his concluding scenes as Batman, that we got like I think about as close as possible as you can get on the big screen to that kind of look, without it being the suit of armor. Don't get me wrong, they've already nailed the suit of armor. They did that before. As far as the armor suit from Dark Knight Returns. But I'm talking about the actual cowl that he wore in Dark Knight Returns. I thought that was pretty darn close to it. And I like that it was blue. I like that it was blue instead of the darker tone, the black, more of a black look to it. I like that it had that blue shade to it. We don't see a lot of the blue on the screen with Batman.
Yeah, and it was funny because when we were watching it, you commented. I heard you comment on it. It's blue, cool.
Yeah, I just thought it was neat, to do something a little bit different. Where it seems like, and I'm not believe me, I love the Batman film and television capes and cowls that they've been doing. I just liked the choice of remembering that, he hasn't just worn black. Yes. Yes, there is the whole does it come in black thing that we've got to put out there with Batman, but the truth is that color scheme that we saw on there is very rich in the comics with Batman. I loved the choice. It was really, really cool. It gave you this sense of, so much of this film is about embracing that there is a larger DC universe, and it gave me that feel. Tiny things give you that feel of something bigger, like they're bigger connecting threads, and they did a really good job of embracing that. Can we talk about the baby scene?
Yes,
because it was so cool. Because so Alfred, was before actually Alfred was talking. I think before he mentioned that. There was some instability on that east wing, and he's always right about it. We saw the glass cracking. They did a great job of building the momentum towards, something's going to happen with these babies. And when they're panning out and you see just how many babies that are in there, I'm like, oh no, what are they going to do with this? Because you knew that something was coming. And I love when talent is able to create, through storytelling, this sense of anticipation. What's going to happen. I mean, we all knew that something was going to happen with the babies. The window cracking, somebody's, at least one of them's flying out the window. What they did, it was a great example of how you build a sense of danger, desperation, and humor into a sequence. Because the dog with the doggone tongue hanging out, the therapy dog, the babies, he put one of the babies in a microwave to save it, but he still put a baby in the microwave and it dinged. And I thought that was great. What it established very early on is what it looks like to go through the Speed Force through the eyes of this Flash. And establishing those rules very early on in this film was pivotal, because there are people that went to this movie that didn't see Justice League. My wife, I think she saw Justice League, but if so, she's certainly not going to remember it the way you and I would. And I'm not knocking her at all. She's not as interested. This film established the rules for her. She loved this one. She was talking about it a ton afterwards, which that's the measuring stick for my wife. Did she go for me because she's being a trooper, or did she go and really enjoy it? We saw that most recent Spider-Man animated film. I think it's Across the Spider-Verse. It's whatever the second Spider-Man film is. We saw it together. She wanted to go see it, and because she really liked the first one. So this wasn't something I had to drag her to. She really wanted to go, and I've been getting so much better with making sure that go with me if you want to. If it's not your thing, don't go, and that's okay. I'd rather have her go to films and enjoy them, so that way, if she's going with me to a superhero film, it's something she wants to see. She wanted to see this one and loved it. It was just a ton of fun. And I think the film did a great job of being welcoming to longtime fans, but also welcoming to people that were going to be first-time viewers that recognize this as a summer blockbuster, saw something in the trailer that drew them in, and explained the rules. And I thought that baby sequence was fun. It had danger. Clever ways of, every time it looked like he was solving one problem and getting all of them out alive, another problem was coming.
Yeah.
You had that, the flames coming out of that container. You had one of the statues. There was some kind of, sharp, looked like axe-like thing that was coming down. It seemed like every time he literally blinked, there was something else that he was dealing with that gave you this sense of by a split second, or millisecond, whatever you want to call it, or millionth of a millisecond, was able to just barely get them to the other side. It was just such a great sequence of events.
Oh God, yeah. And he takes the bedpan, throws it to capture the acid, so it doesn't burn the kid. eats half of the burrito and then throws the other half to hit the knives, turns up the flame to knock the one thing out, puts the baby in the microwave because the baby is about to go through a bunch of flames. So the baby's in the microwave to protect it from the flames. And again, it's just the way he was positioning them. Doing slight turns because, again, later on he explains you can't move them heavy at the Speed Force or it will kill them, So he's doing the slight stuff and moving the inanimate objects versus moving the little babies because that would kill the babies, So I love just that use. And again, how, he runs fast. No, it's beyond running fast. It's thinking fast. It's looking fast. He's moving so fast, he's able to run up falling objects. And I always love when I see, when they really do that with a Flash, where there's a piece of, he stood on the one wheelchair that was falling and used that and sprung off the other thing and flipped through that. And it was just, again, he's moving so fast, he's able to use something that's falling as a launch point. Yep. And I loved seeing that. Again, they did a great job with showing this Flash's speed, but also I did like halfway through it, he goes right to that vending machine and he has to eat up because he's burning so much calories. He's burning so much that he needs to keep his energy levels up. He was tapped out. And the important thing was, where you're nailing it, they established the rules that when he's tapped out, he's useless to these babies. Yeah. Which is really important because it led to a funny sequence, but it was a great example of using humor in a way where you're not taking away from the heroism of the moment, right? He had to do that, so it led to funny bits with the vending machine, funny bits with the burrito that you're laying out, but you knew because of that calorie counter that was on there that his battery's out. He's done. Yeah. If he doesn't do this, the kids are dead. And it was funny because they did it right where as his energy levels going down, everything started moving faster. Mm-hmm. And then when his energy levels got back up, then everything slowed back down. And they did a brilliant job with showing that. Where, again, as he's running out of energy, things start moving faster, things are going to fall, and he's going to basically be a splat with those babies. But no, he refills his energy tank, so he's good to go. It was a really cool moment. And I actually, great opening sequence, great way to start off, this movie with this real flexing of the muscle. How fast is Barry actually? They showed it right there. It was brilliant.
Barry goes back through time because he's, his obsession is obviously, is there a way? What can I do to have as minimal an impact as possible? Is there a way that I can save my mother without really, without like sitting down and saying, hey, Mom, don't do this. And having that kind of paradox that he's causing. He was trying to take into account everything Bruce was saying, yet not letting go of the idea of there's got to be a way, right? I have these powers. Isn't there a way? And boy, that temptation would be there, right? If we could time travel right now, I mean, you and I are both in the same boat. If I could time travel right now, I'd love to talk to both of my parents. You know what I mean? And to see, and how hard would it be to go back and see them and not tell them something that we think could make them live longer? You know what I mean?
Oh, God, yeah.
I mean, so I get it. And it was it's a very real conundrum because I was sitting there thinking to myself, like, what would I do in that situation? How could you not, because it's unavoidable. Like, you would want to be able to say, hey, if you go get checked out earlier, my mom died of cancer. And literally there were, I'll just say it. My mother had months where she was ignoring a lump. She knew that she had it. If I could go back through time and tell her, hey, go get checked out, how could I not do that? You know what I mean? Right. There's the conundrum of like, how do you not do that? But you can see this story poses, that's going to change things. I mean, and could have major impact. And the butterfly effect kind of thing is such an interesting theory because you can, if you apply it to real life and really think it through, that there's truth to it. And it's a great, very deep theory that comes out of when they blew up this whole multiverse thing, when they started talking about time travel in literature. It's where sci-fi stuff like this gets really, really fun when you dig deep and start having these conversations. You see why Barry did what he did, and I don't know that I could have done anything. I don't know that I could have been as subdued as he was trying to be. And I like to consider myself a pretty disciplined person these days. You know, when I was younger, I would have been, you know, Mom, let's talk about this. And I'm giving her a chart and telling her everything that's going to happen. Whereas I think the older me would be more conservative in my approach, trying to kind of be like the Barry approach on this one. But I don't know that I could be as subdued as he was being. Because he really was, I think, about as subtle as you can be in dropping that. You know, everything was about that can, just making sure that can gets in the cart, and you know, just a very, very little impact on what he's doing. And I just loved the discipline. It was where you were mentioning it before about how this Barry in this one was so much more. Was so much better than the other movies. It was sequences like that where I'm like, oh wow, the maturity of what he just did there. It made me a believer in the Ezra Miller version. And it got to the point where I was sitting here, I don't need to compare him. And that's where I'm going to say, I don't need to compare him to Grant Gustin. Grant Gustin told his story. That's his version. That's great. I really liked the Ezra Miller version in this. I want to see more of the Ezra Miller version. I want to see this character continue to evolve, which is something I don't know that I don't know that I felt as strongly in the Justice League films. I do know the Snyder Cut made me feel that, and I want to be clear. I don't want to spend too much time talking about the Snyder Cut versus the Whedon Cut because we've already talked about that on the show, and I agree with our conclusion that there were things I liked better in the Whedon Cut than the Snyder Cut, and vice versa. And let's not go down that rabbit hole right now, but I will say, compared to both of those movies, this Flash has definitely evolved, and he should, because this takes place after that movie, or after both of those movies, depending on which one you want to say is your set in stone one. And I really, really liked him in this film. I'm a believer now in the Ezra Miller Flash, to the point where I said, I don't know if it was during the film or at the end of the film, I had turned to you at one point and said, I would love to see another movie with this Flash. And I really do feel that. I would like to see more of Ezra Miller as a Flash, and I hope we do get that.
Oh, big time. And I'm right along with you. And it's funny, you think back to the scene in old Barry's apartment when he's talking to Iris. And when he actually does come up with the idea of just putting the can in the cart. If she doesn't forget the can, and I love how he's playing it out, and I loved her reaction to this. Like, if you think about this kind of stuff, it'll drive you mad. And it would, because I'll be honest, I know, like you have, I have, gone over 1,000 things in your mind you could have done differently.
Sure.
And you focus on that stuff, it will drive you mad. And we see that in this movie where young Barry, who keeps going back and back and back and turns into the Black Racer, where he is driven, basically driven mad over this obsession to fix it. And I love how we get the taste of it. Well, one, Ben Affleck, Bruce, tells him, hey, our scars make us who we are, and you can't change this up. Then Iris adds on to that, hey, this would drive you mad if you focus on that. Both of them are telling Barry the same thing. You gotta live. You can't focus on the past. And then even Michael Keaton throws that in at him, where you can't live in the past. All these different stuff, it keeps playing into it. And that's part of where old Barry is able to move on. Young Barry gets caught and obsessed in that he gets obsessed with his mission of nobody dies. Well, that doesn't always happen that way. And I love just how that played out. Again, brilliant usage of, I don't even want to say foreshadowing or anything, because both of us were like, who's that? When they first introduced the Racer, we're like, wait, the Racer? Neither one of us until old Barry started getting understanding. That's when I think we both clicked into both of us. We're like, yep, that's young Barry. I think we both caught it at the same time before the big reveal. And I loved how they played that and how they built on it. And throughout this, they gave us the information to determine, so we could determine who it was. It was brilliant usage.
Because it's not the same Barry. because of the timeline divergence,
Right.
this is a Barry who grew up differently. So his obsession is a completely different one than our Barry's because he lived a different life. And I really like that change because I had to really think about it. I'm like, I keep thinking of the main Barry Allen, the one that we've been following since the beginning of the film, that is really just the younger him. And it wasn't because of the timeline change. And that was the part that was so cool, was like, it gets heady. Because you're sitting there saying, like, no, that kid would have not grown up to be him. Because their life was different. The way that he was raised was different. There's a divergent path there. And so he was going to grow up to be that thing. And that's an interesting thing when you take a look at it. His ultimate end goal, his end destination was that until, because he was influenced by that Barry, he made the choice to save him.
Yeah.
And I thought it was a really cool arc for him where we got to see this happy-go-lucky kid who was basically, I mean, even though he was happy-go-lucky and focused on having fun and, even chastises our Barry for, it's like, listen, dude, you've been nothing but mean to me. What have I done to you? There's the point where our Barry gets, like, down on himself during then, where he's, like, apologetic, saying that he's, antisocial, doesn't really get, along with people, that type of thing that he was saying. And the younger Barry's kind of like, who is basically a nice kid because he was raised by nice parents, even though he's a little bit aloof, is basically saying, oh, hey, you're all right. And that I liked seeing that side of him where he consoles him. I thought, because what you don't want to do is, you don't want to be thinking this kid is just complete irresponsibility. If so, there's no reason to care about him. They rounded out that kid in a really strong way that I thought was important, to the point where Ezra Miller made me convinced these are two different Barry Allens. This was not the same, and that kid was never going to become him. And how do you, as an actor, to be able to flesh out a character that strongly that I can sit there and say, yeah, they're both Barry Allen, but that is not the same Barry Allen, and that will never be the same Barry Allen. No matter what, he will never be the same Barry Allen. That was really cool.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that, ran through my brain, and it's something that's been going through my head multiple times every time I watch it. I start thinking, I ask myself, what if? Mm-hmm. What if the racer never kicked Barry out of the time bubble, the Speed Force, so he ran into 18-year-old Barry? What if that 18-year-old Barry was able to grow up and everything was to play out? What world would we have gotten? Because you think about it. If Barry's parents' mom isn't killed, dad isn't put in prison, he doesn't go to that crime lab. Because we saw that with the 18-year-old Barry, instead of doing the crime lab, internship his freshman year and focusing only on his studies, he had a date with Iris.
Right.
So he wouldn't have been there to be struck by lightning.
That's the paradox.
There wouldn't have been a Flash in the universe. So, then no Flash. There's also the other stuff that happened in the timeline with Superman. What happens there? All the Zod stuff. I was like, you start going down that path, and I'm like, that would have been also another cool movie to see if they hadn't had the interference of the racer and actually let Ezra Miller land in present day thing. He doesn't have any powers. He's not the Flash. There's what's going on with the Justice League. That's what the kind of stuff I was thinking when we were first watching it, and we're seeing all the good stuff happen. I was initially thinking that's what we were going to get, and then when he kicks him out of the Speed Force, I was like, oh, okay, we're getting a completely different movie than what I had running through my head. And that just, even afterwards, I'm still thinking what that story would have been like. So that's one of the neat things about the story, because there's so many different variations on it, and what it could have been, where they could have diverged. That, for me, is something that adds to this. And that's something that, the Flashpoint stories always should have, that kind of, how is this going to change? I love when they use Michael Keaton's explanation on what Barry did, where he's like, he has the two uncooked spaghetti threads, and he bends it like, everyone thinks it's this. It's not that. It's this. And he turns it, then he breaks it. And if you keep messing with it, you get this. And he dumped the whole bowl of spaghetti, in the cooked spaghetti on the plate. Brilliant explanation on what Barry just did. absolutely loved it.
Yeah, absolutely. It was this, and the spaghetti explanation was fantastic. Why don't we? Well, before we go to the Michael Keaton piece, there's one other piece I'd like to say. When he got knocked out of the timeline, like he did, I liked that he didn't know that he didn't make it all the way back, because he had even asked, "What year is this?" You know, that type of thing. I liked that establishment that paradox was created by the Black Racer, and he references it a paradox that he created. It shouldn't have happened. He created in his own paradox. Created himself in essence by doing that. So, which is heady. You're right. We could head down a whole rabbit hole with that and probably talk for a couple hours just on that sort of concept alone. Barry shows up there, and because of what happened, he needed clothes. And I love that he took the pants and the grandma sweater from the old couple, and he's going back into the house. And at that point, he could care less about anything other than, is she alive?
Yeah.
And he goes into the house and he sees her there. The dad's like poking fun at him, like, you know, any family would, like, you know, with his hair and, you know, the fact that he looks older. I was glad the dad caught it. He looks older. And I thought that was a nice little detail, and he was making a joke about it. And I like how she was chastising him. He looks older. Why would you say that to him? You know, again, the married couple thing, right? You know, my wife and I do that kind of stuff all the time. Again, adding this sense of, I feel them. I feel like I'm hanging with this family. But Barry was in there in that moment with her where he had to say certain things to her, those connecting threads of, you know, I love you more, love you first. That had to happen. He needed that moment with her. And at the dinner table, when he's talking to them and he's having that conversation where he's awkwardly saying things like, you know, so what was your day like? What was your last year like, last month like? What was your last 18 years like? That's a silly question. I would have been a part of them. And I mean, you know, the little things that he's throwing out there in that dialogue, because he wasn't there. It starts to set up this idea, wait a minute, that's true. He wasn't there and he doesn't remember this. I've seen so many time travel shows where the memories start to like imprint on the character because of the fact that their history has changed. His wasn't changing, which sets up that this really isn't his world. And no matter what, the divergent timeline is not his timeline. He is not this world's Barry Allen. And it sets that up in a really cool way. So he's there with them, and he's saving this world and fighting to save this world. And it references later when he's talking to Michael Keaton and saying, you know, he's like, well, you know, why are you doing this? That type of thing. Michael Keaton's basically asking that. And he's like, because this is the world where my mother lives. And that's why he's so protective of it. So connected with Batman in that moment. And you can watch the Tim Burton Batman movies and see there's that sequence with Oswald Cobblepot, Batman Returns, where Oswald's on that quest for his parents. You know, it's kind of his way to get himself endeared to the Gotham City community. And Bruce Wayne looks at the TV and he sits there and says, I hope he finds his parents. And you see that same guy is the same Bruce Wayne that Michael Keaton's acting out here, that when they're in the basement, the two Barrys, and they're talking about family, he looks at the photo of his family. And I'm sitting here like, this writing has captured this Batman. Michael Keaton's acting, he tapped into the same guy he played in those Tim Burton films. I felt like this was the continuation of that. And I love that there were direct things from both the first and second Batman movies. I could subtly connect to this. And I was like, oh my God, did they do such a nice job with this, where it feels like coming home with this guy in the way that they were portraying him. Yes, major time passage. And I loved that aspect of it. But building that this is, in fact, the same guy, I really, really liked that.
Well, and they did the same sets, too.
Yes.
And that was something that I noticed that when he first pulls up, I'm like, oh, that is Michael Keaton, Wayne Manor. Then even going through where Barry went to young Barry goes to reach for the sword, I remember those statues in there because Knox made the joke to Vicky Vale about the thing, and that was one of the first times we saw Michael Keaton in there, interacting with them. That scene, I remember those from the scene, and then especially that kitchen. Because those were some of those great scenes of him and Alfred and him and Vicky Vale, and they're eating around there. That was the exact same set. I was like, this is brilliant. I love this, man. Yeah,
I agree. It's such a brilliant handling of it, and because it's such an important one. And one of the things you mentioned earlier was we talked so much about the screen time with Ben Affleck, and you alluded to the screen time with Michael Keaton. Obviously, so much more with Michael Keaton's Batman. I loved the coolness factor that they brought into it. I liked that they had that the Batwing and the Batmobile, and seeing all of this through young Barry Allen's eyes, where he's sitting here, is that, oh, this is so cool. I saw it as a kid, and I love that I almost fell into the abyss, and so much so, like walking around that set like we would have as fans. I loved the way they played that out. There were important little things that they did, tiny details that just added to the sense of wonder of this film. That's really, really important, and I appreciated the writing choices and acting choices in making that come to life, because you want to feel like you're walking around in this amazingly cool sandbox, and that's the part where like time travel and alternate universes and things like that are fun, when you get this sense like I could be there and this is what it would be like. And they established that.
And if you remember back to the Justice League movie, Barry Prime did that as well. Mm-hmm. When his first time in the cave, he's running all around. He sat in the Batmobile. He's like zipping all over the place. So it was one of those things where it really did fit for them to do that stuff, for him to actually act that way. And again, older Barry is more experienced. He's like, hey, we're here for the Bat Toys. We need to use his resources to try to find the Justice League, see what we can do. And I love just, again, nice balance of what each of them are doing and how they're working it. And even him, I love the fact that he noticed the camera was on and he knew Batman was watching him. He's like, yep. I know you're watching me. And you're the greatest detective in the world. You could find him. And I love just that banter back and forth. And again, this is a Barry Allen who does know Bruce Wayne, who does know some of the stuff that motivated Bruce Wayne. And he's had heart-to-heart conversations with Bruce about life and about just, and again, we saw that earlier with him and Ben Affleck having those dialogues. So this Barry kind of understands who Bruce Wayne is, and even though it's a different universe, he knows there's the commonalities. And I love the fact that he brought up Alfred as well, because Alfred is such a crucial piece in Bruce's life. Obviously, this Bruce doesn't have an Alfred anymore. He could tell because the state of the disarray. There's no Alfred cooking the meals. Bruce was doing all the cooking. The place was dusty and dirty. Alfred would never allow for that kind of stuff. I love just that little thing where he put that out there. Saying, hey, Alfred, and just that connection. Again, it was brilliant usage of his knowledge of who Batman is, and also great usage of who the character Batman is. The writing, this again, so fit Batman. Yeah. Both versions, Ben Affleck earlier, Michael Keaton later on. Both of them really hit who Bruce Wayne, Batman actually are, and I love that about this.
Yeah, that was something that was really critically important. I was glad we got to see some great combat scenes with that Batman. When they were all pinned down in that silo area, and they're trying to rescue what they thought was Superman at the time, and the sense of desperation, because we've got a young Barry who's not experienced, trying to get used to using his powers. We've got the older Barry who's now depowered, trying to guide him. And what he's trying to correct is he sees Zod. I mean, we've got Zod, this looming presence. And what I like that the film established quickly is this situation with Zod was scary, even for somebody with Barry's powers. And you got, I actually want to reference this because it's really important. You got the little kid that Barry rescued but was not able to rescue the kid's dad. And, that was, in Barry's mind, a failure that haunts him, but he still rescued the kid. In this timeline, because there was, you mentioned the changes with Barry and the changes that there's no Superman here. Because now everything shifted later, you see the world engine going off and the kid and the father are both there. There was no Barry there to rescue that kid.
Right.
Which is a divergent timeline. You've got this desperation of, this is now, there's multiple world engines and they're kicking off. Barry references it as uncharted territory later in the film, but you get this sense of, wow, this big event is happening without any Superman there. This is because of Barry's choice. He created this divergent timeline. They're trying to correct that piece. And I liked that, even though you mentioned earlier, the Flashpoint story, changing the characters out impacted this story on a huge level where it felt completely fresh. Yeah, we got the basic skeleton of the Flashpoint story, but everybody being different changed almost everything about how the story plays out and what the impact is on each of the characters. Batman fighting in this, I always marveled at because I've rewatched recently Batman 89 and Batman Returns. One of Batman Returns for Is It Jaws? We actually did an episode on it. Cheap plug for the film review podcast I'm on with Paul Spataro. But we did a really great conversation around Batman Returns, which is going to be available on that feed. But I'll put links to it for everybody, so you can when it comes out, so that way you can check it out. But one of the reasons why I'm referencing that is what I marveled at in those films was, we know about that limitation with the cowl, with him being able to move his head. That was something that bothered me as a viewer back in those days. But even that, the acting was so good, and there was that sense of wonder of seeing like this kind of version of Batman on the screen, that I was always quickly taken away. I thought in this film they did a great job of increasing like this sense of his combat and what combat looks like when you're this Batman. It was a hallmark of those films, and it only improved in this. It was great to see that the 89 Batman kicking butt and just being Batman. The combination of combat skills and gadgets I thought was really well done. It was a great balance. And it was. I also liked the sense of, this is gonna hurt. That Batman, has an impact. I also, there's, that he got shot. That certain things happen, but yet he kept going. He would not give up. And if Batman hadn't been there, this would not have happened. This would not have been successful.
Yeah, 100% would not have gotten through without the bat. And again, it's when Keaton was first Batman. Because, again, the restrictions on the costume, they always had to limit how his fighting was. Mm-hmm. And he was more heavy tech gadgetry. This time they're able to redesign the costume. So, obviously it was a stunt person, I'm assuming Michael Keaton wasn't throwing those roundhouse kicks. But they tied it in nicely with what was always his main thing, where it was a tech heavy focus, but also, hey, he can also throw down. He can also physically fight. We saw that initially in the kitchen scene when he didn't have any gadgets, when it was just him improvising, kicking old Barry's butt, and just young Barry avoiding everything because of the speed that he had. But we did get to see that this Batman does know how to physically fight. So
when was the last time they were able to kind of tweak it. Hang on one second. When was the last time you've seen Batman Returns?
Oh, it's been a long time.
I'd watch it again. There's more combat in there than you think. I was shocked. I watched it recently. My impression was the same as yours. There's actual more physical fighting in that, where Batman's doing physical combat than I think you realize. And I'm saying this, that I thought the same thing you did. I would watch, and I encourage anybody to listen to this. I was under the impression, because of that restrictive cowl and all that, there wasn't as much combat as I thought. The first one had more combat than I thought. The second one certainly did, because what they did was they built off of what was the restrictions in the first film and only added onto it for the second film. It almost feels like this is the next stage of progression of what they were doing in those first two films versus something that was drastically different, if that makes any sense at all.
No, yeah. Well, because that's, again, it's been so. I remember it being too restrictive of a costume for him to actually do stuff.
And it's really not the case if you watch Returns in particular. Okay. They did a very good job of working around that in Returns in particular. Yes, there's still some restrictions to it, but there was a lot more physical combat, because I thought the same thing you did, that there was more gadget heavy, and it wasn't. It was it was like this, a combination of gadgets and martial arts in the Returns film as well.
Oh, cool.
And so I was like sitting here like, oh my gosh, this feels like progression. And like, but not like this drastic leap where you're like, oh my God, it's so different. And I was shocked because of how much we saw out of the Christian Bale films. I was thinking, boy, they didn't do any of this in the Burton films. That's not true. There's actually more in the Burton films than I actually realized. And it was just recently, having seen Returns again, I was floored by how much more combat is in there than I thought there was.
It is funny. This brings up something I've been thinking about a lot, about rewatching some of these movies. Because I 100% want to rewatch Man of Steel.
Yes.
Yeah, because of the great, again, they took the plot of Man of Steel and threw it into this as well. I want to rewatch that movie as well. Now I'm adding to it. I want to rewatch Michael Keaton's Batman's, just again to see this motion, to see what he was doing as Batman before. Because again, in my head, I still had the very stiff moving, unable to do stuff. Like when I was in my neck brace for that for that couple months, I always used to laugh because I'm like Batman now. I have to tilt my whole body when I look up. I can't look down anymore because of the neck brace that I had on. So again, I'm going to add Michael Keaton Batman's to my must rewatch list again.
Yeah, it's worth it, and none of that was to dispute you. By the way, it was just more of I was connecting with what you were saying because I've always felt that way too. And when I watched it recently, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know what film I remember watching, but this has a lot more physical combat than I thought. Restrictions aside, what the restrictions are is you noticed it in the motion where the head's not moving as much. There's a lot more like side kicks and things like that because of it, or straight on front kicks. Where they don't involve him having to turn his head, if I'm making sense.
Yeah.
But there's a lot more physical combat than I really thought. And a lot of using his arms to block and deflect blows and things like that. I mean, there's a lot of tete-a-tete like combat that was really well choreographed, actually, in Returns in particular. But this film, again, took it to the next level. And it was great to see, everything about this Batman, I felt like a kid again. I felt like I was transported back to 89 and the early 90s when we got the Returns. I felt like that same sense of wonder from those films. When he comes out of the Batwing and they're like, where's your parachute? And he smiles and ejects. And you knew what was going to happen if you've seen those films. You knew that those wings were coming out and he was going to glide on down. And it was absolutely the coolest thing in the world to see in this film. I was a kid again in that moment.
Oh, big time.
My wife was, and it was, second viewing of this film, I had the same doggone emotion. And my wife's looking at me, she's like, you are like a little kid right now. And I said, you better believe it. I said, Batman's my guy. And I said, I'm so transported back to when I first saw these movies with Michael Keaton. I said, oh my gosh, I do not give him enough credit for how cool of a Batman he was. And my gosh, this was that guy. They did a great job of, he did a great job of re-embracing that. Right down to his hairstyling as Bruce Wayne, everything. I mean, everything, looked so authentic to being an older version of that Batman. Even the connecting bits with Alfred, where Barry's talking to him about there being an Alfred in both worlds, and there's certain undeniable, certain landmark points in the timeline, certain people that have to be there, certain events that have to take place, and Bruce is connecting with all of this, like the logic of it, and it was just really, really great to see that piece. I didn't know what Michael Keaton's role in this was going to look like. I knew he was in there, like they're going to be in there at least a decent amount because of the way they were showing the previews. I did not think that he was going to be in as much as he was and get the satisfying arc that he was given in this. And boy, is it satisfying. Like, we get to see a conclusion. Like, we get to see the death of his Batman. I don't know any other way to say it.
Yes.
His Batman has a conclusion, as an arc. We get to see the death of Batman. And it was something that Barry was seeing. If this timeline continues, there is no way for me to stop this. It's going to happen this way. And I loved the bit where it was kind of Darth Vader in its approach, but he goes to I want to keep, I want to bring you back or something like that. I'm poorly paraphrasing what he said, and Batman looks up and goes, "You already did. You already did." And I'm poorly paraphrasing what was actually said, but it was that premise of, I had let go of all of this. I had lost sight of who I am. And you re-engaged me. You brought me back. And we saw it. We felt it. We lived it with Bruce Wayne. That was a success of this story, too, was you can sometimes focus on the main character, just Barry Allen, and not have these other satisfying arcs. The arc of Bruce Wayne in this one, oh my God, it was like another Batman movie. It was so cool.
Oh,
and,
God, yeah.
And I've got the Batman movie arc in this one was great. I absolutely loved. I love Batman movie. They did a great Batman movie arc in this.
And it's funny, when we were leaving the movie theater, those that we were talking to, one person, they said, "This is the best non-Batman Batman movie I've ever seen."
Oh yeah, it was. Mm-hmm. And it was.
We agreed with her. We're like, yes.
So let's jump. Can we jump to Supergirl a little bit?
Yes.
Just because talking about, because you've already, I agree with everything you've said, and I think we make a mistake if we don't talk about that character, because you're introducing a new version of Supergirl, and it's the Supergirl that arrives here. She's captured, and she's lived her whole life not building a connection with humanity at all, other than the fact that they've captured her and kept her all the way up until adulthood imprisoned. And we saw this kind of thing happen before with Superman. I mean, this is a very Flashpoint thing to do, but I'm doing this with Supergirl. She does not have very fond thoughts of humans at all, for all the right reasons. But she was raised on Krypton to a certain point in time. At Krypton, to a certain point in time in her life, she was given Krypton morality. She knows what the people of Krypton are and who, what they're all about. And it's not Zod's way. She goes and, basically she's like, "I'm writing you people off," when they rescue her. And, oh my gosh, when they rescued her, that action sequence, I guess that's a toned down version, because the real version was very R-rated. And that sequence, the second time through, I watched it the first time through. I don't know that I had the chance to really appreciate it the first time through. The second time through, I was like glued to her, like when she gained the powers back, right when it was outside of the silo, and she was having that first combat sequence with her captors. Oh my gosh, the tiny details of, there was a bullet going at Batman. She caught the bullet and smashed the gun into the face of the attacker. I mean, all of this stuff going on. Talk about a great Superman style sequence. This Supergirl was absolutely Sasha Calle, and if I'm butchering her name in any way, shape, or form, apologies. She played a great Supergirl where, like you, I really want to see more of this character. Like, I would, if they use her in the movie, they're doing the Supergirl movie, I'm cool with that, because I really dig her. She is a great Supergirl.
Oh, big time. I'm 100% in on that, because she, again, the introduction of her, because we knew going into it that they're doing Supergirl, not Superman.
Yeah.
So that's spoiled. Yes and no. But again, when they picked, I loved how Barry was like, "We got to get her out of here." Even though that's not Superman, we can't. No one deserves to be left here. Mm-hmm. So Barry being Barry, doing the right thing. And they get her out. That opening sequence when they first show up, and he's like, Batman, what do? We try not to die. And just that sequence when the sun just starts hitting her flesh, you're like, oh, she's about to open up on these guys.
Yep.
And I loved that sequence. I loved especially the bad guys immediately started focusing all fire on her because she was the biggest threat. They ignored young Barry and old Barry. They were fighting whoever Batman was punching. That's who was fighting Batman. But everybody else completely focused on her, which they should have been doing because she was the powerhouse. And then just seeing her just throw the people, and I can imagine how they really could have toned that up to an R rating in the fight sequences, especially with just the sheer power that Kryptonians would have. Punching a human could erupt the skull. Now, she wouldn't have those superhuman levels yet because she's been contained all this time away from the sun and with kryptonite and whatnot, whatever they were doing to contain her. So I like they had enough level of superpowered, but not beyond the punching completely through a human body. But she was able to throw them, off the top of the mountain and throw them, catch the bullet, as you said, and smash the gun into the face and then throw the guy, a couple 100 yards. I like they did a nice balance of power. And then afterwards, she just passes out. Because, again, she used up all that energy that she was able to store up initially. And even later on at Wayne Manor, when takes her up to the roof, gets her re-energized, gets her back to full power or close to full power. I really love that nice balance they were doing with Supergirl. And, again, just that introduction of her saying, I'm not human. I'm Kryptonian. But then when she sees what Zod's doing, she knows right from wrong. She knows the House of El stands for hope. Not for conquering, not for destroying. It's about hope. And I love just, again, how that is who always the House of El is about. And, whether it's Superman or Supergirl, we have that same level of dun, 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 dun kind of moments from them.
Yeah. Music was a piece in here that was really well used. It's funny, when doing the podcast with Paul, is it Jaws? Paul always brings up soundtrack, and I'm not a good one when I think of film to jump right back to soundtrack. I'm doing it more and more thanks to Paul, so it would be a mistake if I didn't reference him and the work we do on Is It Jaws. But you do it much more than I do. You are more musically inclined when it comes to that. It's one of the reasons why you tend to bring music into our podcast quite a bit. And even when we talk about comics, you talk about how this soundtrack or that soundtrack runs through your mind. It actually has done something that has let me connect musically and even sound of certain characters' voices and things like that to my reading because of the fact that you reference them. I think it was Brian Deemer. One of them on Comic Geek Speak used to talk about how they listen to certain soundtracks without lyrics from superhero movies when they read their comics. And I've done that. And because of that, and I won't take credit for making that choice myself, it was just a great example of listening to other people and some of the cool things that they do. And it's really fun. It adds a sense of drama to your reading when you do that. And without the lyrics, the lyrics aren't a distraction. You can just enjoy reading your story. Put the soundtrack on low in the background, and it just works really well. But this film did a great job of having its own music. It's songs that were chosen for this particular film, songs of the time periods that they were going to, but also classic DC film soundtracks. Nice. That were thrown in there that I thought was really, really. I want the soundtrack to this film. I mean, it's. Oh yeah. I thought it was really a great soundtrack, and you referencing that, I'm glad you brought it up because it's something. Some films, the soundtrack is one of those things where it just does its job and does it well, and I don't necessarily need it, afterwards. But I appreciate it did what it was supposed to do. It made me appreciate the film. It took me through the emotion I was supposed to. This one stood out for me as one I want to listen to. In its whatever version they're releasing it in. I haven't had a chance to take a look at what the soundtrack looks like, but boy, watching the end credits and seeing the songs that were in there, it really is a stacked soundtrack. Yes, big time. And again, it was one of those things that especially on my second watching, that I really did pick up more of when they pulled out classic superhero
soundtracks, superhero themes, and whatnot. When they actually did it, like first watch through, the one that always triggered really was Wonder Woman theme, because that's just that's just such a perfect theme for that Wonder Woman when she makes her appearance. But then when Supergirl, when they were really beefing her up, I started hearing some of the classic stuff for her, and I was like, oh, that is neat, man. And again, it's very easy to overlook and ignore the music because you're so focused on the action going on in the scene, but that music really does help set the tone. And if you watch a movie where there's no soundtrack, you get a dramatically different reaction to it. So musical score, the musical director, whoever was in charge of how the music and the soundtracks and whatnot playing, they did a brilliant job on this. And that's something that I think a lot of the superhero movies usually that's where they get a lot of the credit on, is the score and the soundtracks, because it does such a great tone as you're watching this action play out. They have something really building to that great moment. So yeah, I love this. And again, the usage of the Kryptonians in this movie was absolutely outstanding, because again, this is a Flash movie, and Superman and the Kryptonians and Supergirl were such a heavy focus on us. Batman was such a heavy focus on a Flash movie, but they never once did I feel like the Flash wasn't the main character.
Yep.
They did a great job of blending these people in, blending this, the villain, General Zod, as a Flash villain. That is outstanding, because again, Zod is a Superman villain. No, he's a Flash villain in this one, because this is the Flash story. And I loved how it was such a... They refilmed, they reshot scenes, but it was like reshot scene for scene, or it had that that same kind of energy going on that we had in Man of Steel. That's why I really need to rewatch it, because I want to see how much of an exact refilming scene for scene was it. Because you've got the points where Zod first comes out saying, hey, you're harboring one of our people. We want them now. And in the original movie, Superman responds. Superman doesn't respond here. So Zod goes, this is an act of war, and Zod is Zod. And I love just how Zod felt so awesome, as a villain in this story. And seeing Supergirl and Zod fight dramatically different than Clark fighting Zod. One, Clark was more experienced, by when he faced Zod. Supergirl is basically fresh out of the tomb. So she doesn't have the power levels. She doesn't have the combat experience that Clark has. She doesn't have the power usage that Clark has. So Zod winning the fight makes sense because of, he's not as powerful, but he's still General Zod. He still has the strategery. He still has the tactician. He knows how to play and how to, it's the rope-a-dope. Take a couple punches, get her in close for the kill shot. I loved, again, the psychology that Zod was playing throughout this. Yeah.
That's a piece where the psychology of that was great. I think the piece that was pivotal, and I thought this was a good storytelling technique, Barry referencing the fact that because of the fact that Superman did not intervene immediately, meaning, from the very beginning when Zod first appeared, did not, step out and become known and things like that, that this was already all uncharted territory. So the point of the rewatching of Man of Steel, whatever's not shot for shot is explained already by Barry's line.
Right.
Which was a very, very smart way to go about this.
And something else that also did bring in my brain, one of the reasons Clark beat Zod was because of Lois Lane.
Right.
Lois Lane wasn't a factor in this.
Right.
So, and Lois had a huge part in that movie of helping, Lois working with the computer-generated image of Jor-El.
Sure.
Really helped defeat Zod. So, no Lois Lane, that's a whole nother side of not getting a victory here. So I love the fact that all these little things are playing out, and again, there's so many different things this story could have gone, and I love that. The fact that I could sit here and just spend hours just thinking about what they did, what if they did that, what if they did that, and nothing's taken away from what I saw. I love what I saw. But there's so many other variations they could have gone with this. And I think that is the strength of a Flashpoint story, of doing something like this. If you only have really one main way you can go, you're like, oh, okay, that's the timey-wimey thing. Okay, we move on. No, this was the this was, again, it's the bowl of spaghetti, and
right.
It really gets, you can spend some time thinking on it, and you can just, kill hours on the day just thinking about where this goes, where this went, where this could have gone, and even just any of the different Supermen, because they had that great moment, where we get the confrontation with Barry, and the Racer.
Yeah.
And they start looking at everything that's happening in the multiverse. And we see all the universe starting to collide and destroy themselves. But also, in there, we're seeing all the other Supermen. We're seeing, the 66 Batman, which, I know you popped, I popped the second time. The audience popped for him. Christopher Reeves and George Reeves,
Our theater, to your point about popping, our theater clapped at every single one of them.
Yes.
They
both showings.
They popped at George Reeves. They popped at Adam West. They popped at Christopher Reeve. They popped at Nick Cage, which was... This is a Superman that never was. That was the rumored film. They used that footage. I thought that was absolutely a phenomenal choice to have Nick Cage do the Nick Cage Superman in that piece. I didn't see that coming. It was cool.
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah. And Helen Slater, too. That was kind of neat seeing Helen Slater and Christopher Reeves on there because they were the same universe. They never really had major interaction in her story, but it was kind of neat seeing them both sitting there going, hey, hey, cousin, what's going on here? Because, we have the Supergirl in this one. So I thought that was a cool usage. And they had the Jay Garrick, version tied in with the George Reeves, Superman universe. So that was the Flash of that universe. I was like, for me, those are some really cool stuff going on. And I loved how they played it off. Again, it was neat stuff that got the pop, but it also was used to accentuate what's going on. It wasn't just a cameo to have a cameo. It wasn't just something a nostalgia thing to get all of us who watched that stuff going, yeah, I remember watching that. It had played a part in there because that was as much as some of the stuff that was affecting young Barry as was old Barry lessons he was giving him. And one of the reasons young Barry sacrificed himself to save old Barry was because he was seeing the damage they were doing. He was recognizing, we're destroying the universe here. We've got to stop this. And I loved, again, brilliant usage of this stuff. It gives you a nostalgia pop, but it's not just a nostalgia pop. It's actually part of the story. It's part of who these characters are. It helps the growth and just development of the, of Bro Barry into the Flash.
Yeah, that part was way cool. I'm looking at the credits of people who were either credited or uncredited, and I noticed the Flash fan, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the opening where they were going to do the Flash, the telling you about the film, and they paused partway through releasing the title, and it's like, hey, it's the Flash, hey, Flash, and he's hey, you nice person. Are you going to eat that candy bar? And I love that, he gets distracted and she throws it and hits him in the head with it. And he does not have the chance to eat the candy bar. But it was such a cool little sequence with fans because that to me is the Flash. The Flash's interactions with people, in Central City and the fact that he is more of that public hero than you would have with a Batman, for example. I really liked that they threw that little bit in there. It was a cool little comedy bit that then they eventually did the opening sequence, and I thought that it was really neat how they played with us on that. I thought it was a cool little clever tool. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And again, I think one of the neat things about this was, we said before, and I'm going to keep saying it probably a couple more times, the usage and interaction of the non-Flash characters. Mm-hmm. The Flash characters, yes, wonderful, but they did a great job with all the other side people. Just the interact, Tom Curry. He had that one little bit when Barry's trying to find, Arthur. And just how they changed him around a little bit. He's still the lighthouse guy. He's still there, but he never met, the Queen of Atlantis. He's like, I want to talk to Arthur. you want to talk to my dog? What? And, well, didn't you marry the queen? And you think, what? You're an idiot, and hangs up. And, I love just those little blips that they kept doing throughout this. Patty Spivey,
Yes.
Spivo, come on, how great was she when the first run around, and then young Barry when she's the roommate, and just, again, same actress, tweaking little stuff, changing how they're acting, changing how they're presenting themselves. All this stuff was absolutely brilliant. It's even the usage of the common reference with the Back to the Future, where he's like Michael J. Fox. Who? That was Maverick from Top Gun. And then just throwing around all the different stuff.
Eric Stoltz, who was supposed to originally be in Back to the Future. Because Michael J. Fox wasn't available or something like that. They shot quite a bit of the film with Eric Stoltz. So I love that in that universe, that just continued.
Yeah, and how Michael J. Fox ended up playing, in this universe, playing Maverick.
Yep.
Tom Cruise was... What did Tom Cruise do? Because he did something else.
I don't remember.
I can't remember what they said as well. But they kind of flipped stuff around, and I love the fact that we had that little timey-wimey stuff playing on, especially because it's Back to the Future. It's the time travel movie that everybody always quotes, that everybody always looks at, how you go back and you can change the future, you can change one piece, No, it's not that. It's actually this, and even Michael Keaton uses that analogy when he's explaining, the multiverse, when he's changing what happens when you go back in time and you change stuff. Everything they kept doing was everything kept interconnecting and interweaving so brilliantly that if you're not even a Flash fan, if you're a time travel story fan, this is a story for you,
right? Because
they did a brilliant job with the consequences of changing time.
Yeah, and that consequences of changing time thing was really, really critical in this. You had to feel there were definite consequences to it. So speaking of consequences, let's talk about the surprise at the end. So he ends up rescuing his dad by moving the cans from, he has a pivotal, emotional moment with his mom, makes the last minute choice to move because he sees the camera, to move the cans from the middle shelf to the top shelf, which then forces the dad to look up. It exonerates the dad, so now that Wayne Tech footage works, and we actually get to see his face, and what they've been saying for years now frees him. But when he's like having this conversation with Bruce, and in that conversation, he's like, well, I basically, you were right. And, I realized that I made the mistake. I got to fill you in and everything. And I basically went back and I didn't do all, well, sort of didn't do anything. And out comes George Clooney. It was really, really cool because I did not expect that. I figured we were going to get maybe a different Batman because of the way that they were building that. Part of me thought it might be Christian Bale because there was rumors of him having a cameo in this film. The George Clooney one was great. It really was such a great sequence for that. And the way he played it off was just really, really cool. It was just another great sequence, another great choice that I really loved. That was where my wife said at the end, we were done there. And she's like, it's over? Not in a bad way. It was, she wanted more. I wanted more. And that's great when you got a film like this where you've been there for 2.5 hours and you're sitting there saying, wait, I want more story. I want to see where this goes next. That's a well done film. Yes,
big time. And it was funny with for our first time watching it, when I heard him talking on the phone, I was like, I thought that was Michael Keaton's voice. Mm-hmm. I knew it wasn't Ben Affleck's voice. Yeah, I could tell just the tone. I could have swore it was Michael Keaton. Then when George Clooney said it, I'm like, oh, okay. Then my second watching, I could 100% hear George Clooney's voice on there.
Yeah.
And it was something that did get me thinking, because I know I mentioned to you in the car how, it would have been kind of neat if it was Robert Pattinson. And you were like, yeah, it would have been cool if it, what it would have been. But part of me does wish. Now, I love George Clooney. I thought it was a great ending. But part of me does wish it was Michael Keaton. Just because Barry had such a connection to that Batman, I think that would have been a neat ending to it.
I disagree.
But I don't take anything away from using George Clooney because, again, you think about it. When Barry went back in time and he saved his mom. Did he create Batman 89 universe? And then when he fixes the one thing, mom still dies, but dad is out of prison, he created George Clooney Batman universe. Because I always put Clooney universe in the same universe as Michael Keaton because it was the continuation of those stories. But maybe George Clooney Batman is a different universe than Michael Keaton Batman. So is Barry in his real universe now? Or is he still in another universe? These are the kind of timey-wimey stuff I've been thinking about.
This is why I disagree with you. When you were saying that you'd rather it be Michael Keaton, I agree with everywhere you just went with that. So I think it's funny. You're kind of like doing this own little arc where you're like, so you're saying, I wish it had been Michael Keaton because of the connection. I don't, because I thought the Michael Keaton arc had such a great ending. Like it felt like it was completed and what it did. Bringing him back there would have taken away, I think, from that piece. Whereas the George Clooney being there is doing exactly what you're doing right now. Right. Now you've got this head game of, does Barry fix this? And if so, how? And, does he do it and protect his dad somehow? What does this mean about George Clooney's universe? Exactly where you're going. I feel like it keeps you thinking in a way that is very satisfying. And I think that's something that this film has done really well. I think what's fun about a movie is when afterwards you start having conversations like this. And you think about the film maybe well beyond the intention. And that's where a film has legs. It has rewatchability, and you can watch it again in different ways. My second viewing of this was different than the first as far as what I was focused on and why. And that speaks to the depth of this movie. This film is definitely a film that is better served watching it more than once.
Oh, big time. 100%. And again, I do love the fact that it was George Clooney at the end, because he's one of the Batmen who was saddled with a really bad script. And I think that's what ruined his version of Batman, because he very easily could have pulled off the Batman Bruce Wayne thing. And I remember when they announced him as being Batman, I was kind of excited for him because I knew he could pull off the playboy, hi, I'm Bruce Wayne. And he could, then kick it on to Intensity Bone to be Batman. But he had the more campy version of Batman, and it kind of ruined, the Batman franchise. And some people blame him, and I've never blamed him. I blame the script he was given. There's not much he could have done with it because he was kind of saddled with the version of the Bat universe, to me, that went off the rails a little bit. So seeing him get to play the role again, and if they do a second Flash movie, if they have him in there, it'd be kind of interesting to have him be the Batman in the second movie.
Yeah.
So you could because we gave Michael Keaton a chance to really be Batman. Ben Affleck, once again, really got the show, yes, he's a Batman. Give George Clooney his shot. Let him actually have a role where he is a decent Batman, where he's got a decent script that he can actually show, yes, I know what I'm doing. And if that never happens, okay. But I still want another Flash movie. I want Supergirl again. I want Sasha Cale in on another movie because she did a brilliant job. I want Ezra Miller again as Barry Allen. I want to see what the next movie is. I want to see him and Iris's relationship. I want to see what happens with his dad now being out of prison. How does that affect things?
Yeah.
Because again, we have those great father-son moments when young Barry and his dad, and then every time all the other meetings were phone and through the prison walls. And I'd love to see adult, Barry interacting with his dad. Those are stuff I'd love to see in the second movie, and we can even get more exploration of the multiverse. The second movie could be about some multiversity stuff, or it could be a purely Flash-focused inside, his universe, him dealing with, Flash problems. I'd be good to go either way. I just want more of this stuff.
Agreed. I agree totally. It was a great movie, and I walked in pretty much so figuring that I was going to really enjoy it. It walked in with a lot of hype, so I walked in with high expectations, and sometimes that's where sometimes a film can't meet the expectations. For me, this one exceeded them. which that's a harder task, I think, to do. I don't know where it fell for you, but for me, it exceeded my expectations. I really, really felt like, especially the second viewing, which is pretty pivotal because now you've taken away okay, we've seen the film, the new car smell's gone. How do you really feel about this? And I really, really enjoyed it in the second viewing.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. It 100% exceeded expectations. If I got to give it a grade, I give it a solid A plus. Mm-hmm. And here's the other thing. This is a third watch for me. This is a third watch in the movie theater for me. Because, the first watch, was awesome watching with you. Second watch, I'm like, hey, I 100% always try to watch any movie we do twice. This is now a third watch where I want to see it again on the big screen. Because, it's going to be...
I thought you meant you already saw it 3 times. I'm like, when did you do this? I
haven't had a chance to yet, but this is a movie I want to see 3 times on the screen in the theater. And so I think that for me says volumes on how much I really did enjoy this movie. Because again, it's that second rewatching I wanted to see in the grocery store. The first time when Barry's putting the can in his mom's cart, if we see the Barry who later takes it away, out of costume, hidden and disguised. And I didn't see him there during the first viewing. So I was like, I wish I was hoping I would have seen him there. But again, some of the action sequences with Affleck, I want to rewatch those again. Definitely, the Supergirl, some of the Supergirl stuff. I want to, again, those are some really cool sequences. I want to, dive a little bit more into those and watch those again. So there's stuff I want to see again, on this movie. And just like I want to rewatch Man of Steel, and see the Zod stuff. Yeah.
There's this film has a lot of legs to it. And it was something I really, really enjoyed. That part that it got me excited to, again, see it again. I'm with you. I want to see it a third time, at least. It's going to be a must-own, and I'm hoping it's a must-own with a lot of extras.
Oh, God, yeah. This has to have.
Yeah, I'd love to watch it with, director's commentary or actor's commentary and things like that. This is one of those films where there's a lot of movies where I want to own it, and I don't really care about watching any of that stuff. I just want to watch the film again. In this case, I want, deleted scenes. I'd like to see the full version of the Supergirl scene if they'll put that up there.
Hearing what you said, I'm like, I want to see that now.
Yeah, I do too, because I thought she was great. Yeah, there's so much that I want to see that it's fantastic. It's like, count me in.
Yeah, and I'll bet you there's sequences on top of Wayne Manor between Young Barry and Supergirl that got cut.
Yeah.
Because again, that sequence was awesome. It was kind of neat seeing those together, but I could imagine in my head they had a much longer conversation up there. There was more discussion back and forth and stuff like that. But I bet you that, again, every scene, you can't, everything you film, you can't put in the movie because then you'd have a 6-hour movie. Now, personally, I would not complain, but the general population would complain on that. So I'm betting there's sequences there that got cut away. There's more sequences between young Barry and old Barry, and even between Michael Keaton and Barry. So there's probably a bunch of scenes that got put on the cutting room floor just for time, and I'd love to have those put back in and see this massive monster movie.
Yeah, I'm with you. The only piece we didn't really talk about much was Arthur Curry at the end credits. And I think it's worth talking about him because you mentioned his dad, which is so great when they had it in there. I checked to see if there was going to be an end credits scene when you and I were sitting there just because I didn't want to leave without seeing the end credits scene. And unfortunately, I knew that it was going to be Aquaman. And I immediately jumped away from it because I didn't want to see anything more than that. I just want to see the scene play out. So we watched the scene. It was a fun scene. I like that he was explaining to Aquaman, there's multiple yous, and they're all pretty much like you, like big and furry. And it was great, where it was like he was talking about, how variations worked and stuff like that. And I like that Aquaman's like giving up one of his rings for more beer. And it just kind of fit Jason Momoa's Aquaman. It was a fun little bit between the two of them. I was glad he had a cameo in this film. It shows that there's a possibility for his Aquaman to continue on, which I really hope he does, because I think he's been very, very talented in that role. Overall, it was a satisfying end to that film. The end credits were really great too. I liked how they were using the dogs and the babies and stuff like that for some funny comedy sequences. Playing around with a bit that I thought was really, really fun in the beginning. Overall, it's just a very, very satisfying film.
I know. And again, seeing him there gives you hope that maybe we're going to have more. Seeing Gal Gadot in there as Wonder Woman gives you hope. Maybe we'll get more of her. It's kind of like with the Shazam, the second Shazam movie. Really loved that movie. I wish there would be a third one and there would continuation. Would it probably happen? Probably not. Right. But I would love to see that continue on. I'd love to see this continue on. So if numbers are good enough, maybe we'll get more. Maybe we won't. Maybe this is the ending of it. And here's the thing. If this is the ending of it, I got a great movie out of it. I'm happy. Mm-hmm. So I could walk away from Ezra Miller as Barry Allen the Flash and say, yes, I got to see him as the Flash. Yes, I got to see Michael Keaton as Batman do an awesome job. So I'm happy right now, and I'm going to stick to and hold on to that joy. Would I love to see a third a second Ezra Miller movie, a third appearance of him as the Flash? Yes, 100%. Would love to see that. Would I want to see Sasha Cale as Supergirl? Yes, 100%. Would love to see that. Yeah, I was looking at her IMDb, and there's nothing listed for her being on as another Supergirl anywhere. So who knows if they're even looking at her for that. But I 100% would love to see that kind of stuff happen. But if I don't get it, I'm okay with it because I've got a great movie to watch. I got a great movie I'm going to watch again. You mentioned earlier about this is a must-own. Yes, 100% must-own and must-watch again. There's certain movies that I own that I basically picked up just to make sure I'd have them if I ever wanted to watch them again. But I don't regularly watch them. This Flash movie I would regularly watch again.
I think it's Sasha Calais, too. Like the French Calais, I think is how you pronounce it. I'm just looking up the pronunciation just because I think she did a great job, so I'm trying to pronounce her name correctly. Again, that's just me trying to look on the internet for like a pronunciation key of it. Just because she did a great job, and I want to make sure we're getting that right. It was a great cast, and that was something that was really, I think, kind of a stellar part of this film.
Spinning with great speed, the Flash creates a protective vacuum around himself.
I would like to remind everyone about our show voicemail line. It's 1-440-388-4434 or drnorge on Skype. RagingBullets@gmail.com is our email address. You prefer to contact us that way. RagingBullets.com is our show website. It feeds into Twitter. It feeds into our Facebook fan page. We are proud to be part of an amazing Facebook group community. One of the great things they do is they curate regular DC news, the cool things that are going on with DC. They also fun memes from the internet, fun new artwork. They shout out different podcasts and blogs. There's just a lot going on there. It's a great positive community that is just sharing and curating a lot of things that are going on. If you're a fellow podcaster and you want to shout out your podcast in there, that happens a lot of times in our groups as well. We certainly want to help promote all of you. I believe people have done that for us over the years, and we are proud to be able to do that as a community because I feel like we are proud of this amazing podcast community. The About Us section of our show website is going to find details about how to connect with us on social media and through gaming platforms. We are sponsored, as always, by DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. Mr. Seguin, what is going on over at DCBService.com?
We have Wonder Woman Blood and Guts Deluxe Edition hardcover, 50% off, $24.99. Wonder Woman The Golden Age Omnibus hardcover, Volume 5, 50% off, $75. And Wonder Woman The Silver Age Omnibus hardcover, Volume 2, 50% off, only $50. Thank you, DCBS.
Our next episode, we're going to be back with our Batman 66 film Watchalong as we continue our episode 700 celebration. We will see you next week.
Bye.
All right, you guys. Are you ready to sing your song?
I'd say we are. Yeah, let's sing it now.
Okay, this should be fun. Now get ready for your cue. Okay, Sean?
Okay.
Okay, Jim? Jim? Jim!
Okay. Raging bullets come.
Okay, fellas, get ready. That was very good, Sean.
Naturally.
Jim, you're a little flat there, so be careful. Jim? Jim? Jim!
Okay. Justice League and so much more. I still love Green Lantern Corps. DC Comics are what we know. The Raging Bullet Show. DC Comics are what we know. The Raging Bullet Show.
Excellent job, guys.
Let's sing it again. Yeah, let's sing it again.
No, that's enough. Let's not push it.
Push it. What is that? Yeah, what are you talking about?
No, I didn't mean anything by that.
I think
Sean, Jim, how long do you want the song to go?